the specific discussion points that we're going to be talking about today is number one, it will be around pricing and quotations, selling techniques, and consumer mindset. Then the second part of the conversation, we will focus it on how do we manage, or the management process of the consumer, and the way we will be talking about effective management of the consumer, and then as well as the clinical versus financial management thereof. And lastly, we will look at various challenges and opportunities pertaining to lenses, frames, and how should we go about following up with the various patients that we see on a day-to-day basis. So I hope everyone has got their water ready. I'm excited. Throughout the presentation, I will get or ask questions, and please use the chat box. If there's anything that I'm saying that contradicts what you have been doing up until this point, please do make mention of it in the chat box. Can we have an indication of how many optometrists are actually joining us? Just make mention of if you're an optometrist, and just do highlight that for us, please, on the chat box, so that I can actually engage you as well on your role that you can play, especially during this uncertainty and this new normal that we are all finding ourselves in. All right, let's get started. Starting off by pricing and quotations. This is very, very exciting. The first question that I want to ask everyone is, what are some of the possible reasons people don't buy, if you think about it? Especially now, we're going to face this challenge more more than ever. And so some of the reasons why people don't actually buy, there's no need, there's no money, perhaps they're not in a hurry, there's no desire, or there has not been trust that has been established between yourself and them. And so the question that we always need to ask ourselves as optometric practices is, who loses more when people don't buy the products that we are selling or the services that we are rendering? Is it the business that loses more, or the patient? Always think about it this way. Consumers buy products all the time, shoes, bags, clothes, etc., to reflect who they are and what they want. So the question then becomes, why the same should not be applicable to optometric practices? And so we need to be thinking of our practices as a place of eye health, visual management, patient care. It could be the place of fashion, trends, accessories, a place where people come to complete their look in terms of they need shoes, they need bags, they need clothes, correct? The eyewear is part of what they need. And so you need to ensure that consumers are able to express themselves through the products that you are providing them with. The attractive appeal of your business is greatly enhanced by the extent to which your product and service reflects consumer requirements. Think about that. When prescribing products to the consumers, you have to consider their lifestyle, their personal brand, their working environment, their leisure activities in relation to what they deem to be important for them. And so let's now, with that into consideration, let's look at what is the consumer choice. Well, how we see this is that in optometry practices specifically, we should never give the patient or the consumer a choice between something and nothing. The choice must always be between something and something else. What do I mean by that? For example, when you're communicating with the patient, you're either communicating, sir, you're going to be prescribing a Niva Plus or a Niva Max. One pair with a Preventia and the other one with a Niva Plus, for example. You need to think about the management in terms of correction, protection, and enhancement. And so when you're communicating with the patient, you're telling them, you informing them that we're putting a T8 or the new transitions on the main pair, and on the second pair, you'll have a nighttime or night drive boost, for example. You're not just communicating this or that. You should always be communicating this and that. Always remember that. It's a psychological change that you need to apply, a mindset shift that you need to have in terms of when you're engaging the consumer. They should always have a choice between this and that, not this or nothing else. Let's look at the third point. Implications of the free pay. I love this. This is very, very a touchy subject. And what do I mean by this? To a large extent, as an industry, I think we have created very low expectations of ourselves by constantly selling buy one, get one free. What are your thoughts on that, for example? Consumers, for example, end up coming to the optometric practices expecting exactly that. And we have a responsibility to change that. The selling point from a value part should always be, here are the features and benefits of pair one versus pair two. And so you don't sell the free pair as a by the way option, because it will be treated as a by the way option. And I will show you now on the next few points how you integrate the buy one, get one free option in optometric practices, especially when it comes to the discussions that you are having with your patients. The next point, I'm just going fast on this because I'm just laying the foundation on this section. The question here becomes, how should we approach the pricing challenge? And I stand to be corrected, but let me just see quickly which optometrist we have here. All right, so we've got a few optometrists here that I see on our screen here. All right, perfect. So how should we approach the price discussion, right? This here has got optometrists that need to play a bigger role in it. But I've noticed as well, in certain practices, the pre-screening tests are done by the staff. So you yourself have the opportunity as a staff member to introduce products that you're going to be prescribing right earlier on. And it can start the pricing discussion already at that point. For example, certain components of the management solution should be seen as the gold standard in the optometric practice. These are the advanced coatings, tints, lens materials, etc., that every single person in the optometry practice that gets a pair of spectacles needs to have with. So always allude to these from the onset and not at the end of the examination. Example will be as follows. A patient comes in. I think there's someone whose mic is. Hi, Belinda.
That's mute.
Thank you. Thank you for muting everyone, Belinda. So here's an example in terms of a patient comes in complaining of light and glare when sitting in front of the laptop all day. That is what is important to them. So why not introduce the possible ideal management solution to them at that point already? What do I mean by that? Ntate Nkosi says, I've been finding my vision to be uncomfortable every time I'm sitting in front of the computer lately. Even when I'm driving at night, I find that it's a problem. That opportunity presents itself right there for you then to say, Ntate Nkosi, the past few weeks, we have actually seen an increasing number of people complaining of a similar problem to you. And so depending on how much you're spending time in front of your computer or how often you're driving at night, we might have to then consider getting you spectacles. And the spectacles that we're getting you, you might have to find that we're going to have to put a Preventia or a Niva Max on your pair of spectacles. And as the diagnosis gets revealed, we might also have to consider transitions on that pair as well. So what do? You are laying the foundation as opposed to testing, selecting frames, and then only at the end discussing products and pricing. So already when the person tells you that this is what they're complaining about, which has resulted in them coming to the optometric practice, you then need to already allude to potential products that you're going to be starting to think about. And why did I mention, for example, a Preventia or a Niva Max? Is because those are the premium products. They're not your basic products. I've noticed in a lot of optometric practices, the following happen. Yes, sir, we can get you like ARC or a tint that changes when you go on the outside. Why do we do that? And then all of a sudden we do the test, and then at the end We then say, oh, we're recommending an anti-reflective coating, and then the patient asks you, how much is that going to cost? And then because now you're scared to sound like you're going to say something more expensive, you then say, oh, it starts from. So what do? You end up communicating the most basic product, even though you know the patient needs a more advanced one. That's going to create a problem when you have to now convince that patient that, wait a minute, you don't want them to get the basic AR coating, you want them to get a premium coating because the concerns and the complaints that they told you actually require the management of a Preventia or Niva Plus. So if you don't start there, you're going to have a problem having to get back to that space. So my suggestion when you're introducing products in your discussions, do it from the onset. And when you start with the premium product, you are able then to work your way down. And I'll show you as follows. Point number 2, for example, on the very same topic on how do we approach the discussion around pricing. During the exam, you remember this was a pre-screening where you asked them information and they told you about what's wrong and you introduced the Preventia of the Niva Max, right? Now, during the examination procedures, reiterate the coatings you made mention of earlier on and introduce the possibility of a second pair. Remember, at this stage, you would have discovered what the exact problem is. What are the associating factors going with that main problem that the patient complained about? And so at that stage already, you can have an opportunity to introduce the second pair. This way, you are solidifying the foundation that you had set in the previous point that I had made. So the time that you are mentioning the second pair, it's got nothing to do with buy one, get one as free special. It's got nothing to do with the deals that you are running in the practice. It's got everything to do with, sir, or Ntatenkosi, you complained of the following. And as I made mention earlier on, for us to adequately solve this problem that you are having, we're considering getting you 2 pairs of glasses. The first pair, this is what we're going to be putting in. And then the second pair will have the following. So you keep reiterating the problem with the potential solution as we're going on. I just see we've got a comment here. Someone says here, I also find that optometrists need to believe and understand the products they are prescribing. That's very, very important, because what tends to happen is that optometrists think that only they themselves need to be responsible for the product knowledge, and they limit the product knowledge discussions in the test room, not realizing that the pre-screening forms, the pre-screening tests that were done, the patient information forms that were completed were all being done by the consultants, right? And a lot of things that are taking place at those initial stages, staff are involved in that. So if staff are in a position to know that, wait a minute, a person that complains of significant problems with light and glare, in our practice, we provide the following products when it comes to glare and light. Why not introduce that discussion at that point in time? And so at the end of the examination procedures, when you are ready now to do product selection and conclude on the management, you would have, and you are now selecting frames, you in relation to what problems the person complained of and what the diagnosis is. You now are in a better position to say, oh, sir, as we've been discussing, this is what you complained about, and this is what we're going to be managing on. By that stage, the patient trusts you. The patient has gotten confident that you know what you're doing. The patient is not feeling like you are giving them sales pitches. But what's important at that stage is that for every problem that you identified or diagnosed, you identified the accompanying solution. So that's very, very important that you do that with all patients throughout the communication. Don't do one part and expect to do the other one at the end. Think about it this way. You start with your best shot and you conclude with your second best shot. So your best shot is what is the ideal management option or solution that is available for this patient. You start with that. everything else that you do going forward is to reiterate that which you started off with. And so here's a scenario for you. A consumer complains now at the end that the price is too high. Your approach now at that stage is to focus the conversation on the value, features and benefits, impact on the impact of the management solution on the visual requirements and environment, the expectations and problem solving. So if you did not start alluding to products from the onset, patients are going to have the shock of their life when you are now telling them that the pair of spectacles that you are recommending for them is going to cost X amount. If you did not start mentioning as you are going along what those particular products and solutions that you are recommending. Let's move on.
Cái này topic is important.
Is there a comment there?
The addressing ID is...
Hi Belinda, can you just mute everyone again? To the optometrists that are here, what are some of your thoughts on this that I've just shared? If you guys don't mind just sharing your experiences in terms of how you approach the introductions of pricing and products. My view is that you guys need to spend more time training your staff. Your staff needs to see how you do it. Your staff, I remember when I was in practice, once in a while, especially with staff members they've got enough confidence, they've been with me for a long time, they've seen how I operate. I would get the staff when I'm discussing products. I will say, I'm going to hand over to my colleague after this, and I just want them to have an understanding of what is it that we're going to be prescribing to you. So don't always only hand over the file out afterwards. Make sure that you are going in the test room with the patient, especially at that part where you're going to be discussing products that you're going to be introducing to the patient. Don't do it out of the test room. Do it inside the test room, where you're making sure as well, for example, when you are handing over as the optometrist the card to the staff member, that the staff member also is in a position to know exactly what you discussed with the patient. A lot of optometrists, they write on the file and then they just hand over that to the staff member, and then everything collapses when it's just the staff member and the patient. So always just think about that as an optometrist. I don't know if anyone has a different viewpoint on that. Please do share in the comment section. Here's the next one. How should we be writing or giving quotations? Golden rule, never on pieces of paper. Imperative, this is very, very important, that every staff member knows the most common use products in the practice. You need to know your pricing very well. You need to know the features and benefits of the products that you are selling. You need to understand the difference in price in products. So for example, don't just summarize the benefits of anti-reflective coatings. As a staff member, it's very, very important. If you guys are having to choose between 3 different types of anti-reflective coatings that you are getting from BBGR, for example, there's only 3 different types that, let's say, for example, the practice deals with on a day-to-day basis. You've got the responsibility of ensuring that between the basic one, let's say the Niva Plus, the Niva Max, or the Preventia, for example, or the night drive boost, you need to know how patients experience that product on this pair of spectacles. You need to know what are the product drawbacks. So when you're giving the quotation and you can see that, okay, medical aid is not going to cover this, the optometrist has recommended something that is way above what the medical aid is going to come off, and now you have to write down the cost of what the total cost of the spectacles is going to be. If you don't know your product, if you don't know the features and benefits of the products, if you don't know your pricing very well, you're going to struggle writing a clear quotation. And when patients are asking you challenges or concerns or putting forward objections to the pricing that you are indicating to them, you're going to struggle to be able to point out the value of the product in relation to the problems that they have highlighted. So just think about that when you writing quotations. You need to understand what are the possible price objections that may come about in the discussions. And as a practice, you've got a responsibility to, on a weekly basis, discuss potential challenges surrounding pricing, surrounding medical aids. It has to be something that you do on a regular basis and not once off. And it should not be the responsibility of one person in the optometric practice. I don't know if anyone has got a different viewpoint pertaining to this, but that's what our experience has been when it comes to writing or giving quotations. That's how we approach it, and it has always been working because people trust us. When patients come to us, I'm of the view that they trust us. And anywhere else where they go and they're told the price, they pay that price. Why is it that when they come to optometry practices, there's always that negotiation that's taking place? And it's taking place because we have not, as a practice, adequately relayed the value at which the product is going to provide to that particular individual. So think about that. Let's move on. When should you close the deal? This is a question that comes up all the time. Too early is when you attempt to close before establishing in the consumer's mind significant value for what you are prescribing or what you are selling. Remember this, consumers buy the benefits the product has for them. So if you have not spoken value with the patient, they're not going to buy that. Product, for example, must scratch where it itches the most. So talk value first and then close, never before. Always speak at the point at which you are solving the patient's need. So for example, sir, as you complained about nighttime driving, we have recommended the night drive boost because it's going to help you with the following when you are driving at night. So you're reiterating that which they complained about, and you are showing them that you've got the necessary solution for that. And if that person says, but that's expensive, when you work back, highlight to say, sir, yes, I understand that you're concerned about the price, that you feel that it's expensive. This is the best solution available for the problem that you raised. And so there are other options available. We can perhaps prescribe the following for you, but for as long as you understand as well that the ideal management solution for your problem is as follows. And so if you're not going for that, understand that it might pose the following challenge. Here's a question. I find that here's a question. Let me just come here. I find that it's also good to educate your patient so that when they are shown the price, they are making an informed decision. That is a comment from Topiwe. I don't know if anyone else has a different viewpoint on that, but definitely, you see, the education part is very, very important. And when I show you consumer communication tactics, we actually allude to the education part to this. So I'm going to touch base on this now when we're talking about the communication tactics that are available. All right. And then the last one here. We said here, make it easy for people to buy from you. Provide them with security, always. Build trust and communication. When we were in varsity, way back, one of the first things that we were told, when you're even taking case history, the whole point of taking case history is to establish trust, to build trust. Same applies with you as an eyewear consultant. Think about it this way. If you get given the file of a patient and by the optometrist, and you already start telling them that this is what the medical aid is going to cover, but you have not established trust, you have not effectively started seeing how does this particular patient in front of me communicate, you're going to have a challenge convincing them on the price and what they need to be paying. So you need to find ways in which you can establish trust. For example, with product selection. Wow, that's very good. I like the frame on you. As compared to this, what I've noticed about this frame on you is the following. It does the following. You're showing them that the decision that they've made pertaining to the frame selection that they've done was a good one. You're establishing that you actually are for them, not against them. So when you introduce that, on your lenses, this is what the optometrist has prescribed for you. This is how much it's going to cost. At least at that stage, there is that communication that has been established between yourself and the patient. So don't rush into talking price, but rush into communicating the value of the product that the person is going to get in solving the problem that they have pertaining to their vision. And so prioritize the value of the product or the service. Think about it this way. You like Tapiwa just alluded to, that we need to educate. And I actually wrote here on my notes, each close should be an educational process by which you are able to raise the value of the product or service in the consumer's mind. So that's what you do. You never oversell anything. You just have to make it easy for people to buy with you. And so integrity is a key factor. There can never be any compromise on this. And so here's something that I want to ask the optometrist. Remember, I'm saying the topic here is make it easy for people to buy from you. One of the things that I feel or I believe is a quick way to make it easy for people to buy is if you yourself, as the optometric practice staff members, are wearing the product. So we actually wrote here, the team needs to actually wear and experience the products they sell in the practice and not external products. When they know how the product benefits them, it's easy for them to talk about the value the product has because they make it personal to them. And so I don't know what your opinions are, but I've noticed a lot of practices having discounts, for example, for their own staff members in terms of when they're buying products. And so you find that here's an optometry practice, 5 staff members, all 5 people have gotten their eyewear products from that particular practice. But the optometrist has not taken the time to sit with each and every one of those individuals, detailing and profiling those products to them, and making sure that they understand that, Susan, how was your vision before you got this pair of spectacles? Susan is going to say, yeah, I realize now that I've got the Preventia on my spectacles, that it's better than the basic ARC that I used to wear. And this is what I'm noticing from my vision right now as compared to before. You see, when Susan speaks about the product from that point of view, it's personal to them. So when Susan now is dealing with Ntate Nkosi, who Ntate Nkosi has always had a basic anti-reflective coating, and now Ntate Nkosi is convinced that they need a Preventia, or you're trying to convince Ntate Nkosi that he needs a Preventia. Susan is going to communicate with Ntate Nkosi from her experience. Even if Susan is not wearing a Preventia, and Thabo, who also works in the practice, is the one perhaps who's wearing a Preventia or a night drive boost, for example, from BBGR. When Susan is speaking to Ntate Nkosi, Susan is then saying, sir, I'm also wearing the same pair of spectacles as you have always been, but I don't have a similar problem than you. You've got a similar problem to Thabo, who is my colleague over here. And he also used to wear the same pair of spectacles that I'm wearing in terms of the lens, but he recently got upgraded onto a better anti-reflective coating or a premium anti-reflective coating. And so, Thabo, how are you experiencing it now for yourself? So you see, when you're doing that, you make the consumer feel that, okay, these people are selling me something that they too are experiencing. So can we please have like an indication in the chat box in terms of what are the optometrist's viewpoint, or yourself as a staff member, what are your viewpoint in terms of the example that I've given? If you had to approach the consumer in that manner, by if you yourself are wearing the product, it makes it easier for you to communicate about the product. And so always remember, we as salespeople are problem solvers. So when you communicate, you must always communicate the problem that you are solving. Let's look at some examples or some quick tips that we can share with you guys. Selling is a transference of feelings, right? You can only transfer what you yourself are feeling. And so it is easier to sell something that you believe in, are committed to, are fully persuaded about, correct? We've alluded to this before when we said consumers are always looking at what are they going to be gaining if they go with what you recommend versus what will they be losing if they don't. And so you have to believe that the consumer actually loses when they don't go with what you're recommending versus if they do. Because if you don't have that approach, it means you are selling the wrong product. Think about it. If you yourself don't believe in what you're wearing, you're going to struggle to convince the patient on that. We've got a comment here. Rihanna is a frontliner. She says, if I believe in a product, I can sell it. For example, if I'm happy with my lenses, contact lenses included, I can give my personal opinion and you can see it makes a difference. Absolutely correct, Rihanna. Absolutely correct. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That you need to make it personal for you. And it's all on all things. And let's say you are practice right now that it's just you and it's just optometrist and 2 staff members, for example, and only one of you wears glasses in that particular practice. What I would suggest you do today, for example, or the next time you have time, is then sit down as a team and discuss what would be personal for a person who presents with this situation. What will be personal for a person who presents with this solution or this problem? And if we give a person a Preventia versus giving them a Neva Plus, what is the visual experience that the 2 individuals would ideally get? So you have to, when you're communicating from that personal point of view. And I'll show you now in terms of the difference between logic and emotion and what the 2 are actually all about. And actually, as I say here, consumers, regarding gaining and loss, consumers are persuaded more by your pride and belief in your own product than anything else. And so your confidence in your own product determines the confidence that the patient or the consumer will have in it. Think about it that way. Next point, the value factor. People buy value. They see value in you as the staff member, but they will get it from your product. And so you need to be honest and open when you are communicating with the patient whilst you're talking value. Be honest to say, sir, I don't wear glasses because I don't have the problem that you are having. But what I've noticed with the multitudes of people that keep coming into our practice complaining of the same thing as you is that those that are having a severe problem, going with a basic management solution, end up coming back later saying that this product is not working for me. And we have to end up giving them that which they initially were supposed to get. So you see what I did there? You're literally constantly talking about how a person is going to experience a solution or a product in relation to the problem that they have. So you always bring the conversation back to the value of what that person is going to have. Not cheap, not less expensive, not the deals. Those things should actually be byproducts of what you have already convinced the consumer on. So you must always start from a belief system of what you believe this is right for the patient. Patient will pick up the energy that you are selling them something or you are providing them with a solution that they need. That's how you communicate. Don't sales pitch anyone. What do we mean by this? You can be passionate and enthusiastic when you're talking about products and what they need, but at the same time you could be an introvert and just telling them that, sir, this is what you complained about, this is what we're recommending as a solution, and this is how you are going to experience the product that we are recommending for you. And if you're not going for this product versus the one that is less expensive, this is the difference between the two. So ultimately, in your working environment, how much time do you spend doing that which you do? How important is vision for you? You understand that for the next 2 years, this pair of spectacles that we're recommending for you is going to alleviate the following concerns and problems that you are currently having. And this is how you're going to experience your visual environment. You see, you're very calm, but you're stating facts that patient needs to hear. You're not saying, sir, we've got this amazing deal. If you get this, you're going to get this as well. That should come at the end, not what you start with. And so that's what we mean about don't sales pitch people. Just tell them exactly what it is. And I wrote here on the last part here some practical examples. And I will reiterate this point. Discuss eyewear experience in a personal manner. You don't wear spectacles, but your colleague does. Communicate how that management solution has benefited them. So make it practical whenever you're communicating with the patient. Find what is the common factor, what is the baseline factor, what is the main concern, and discuss that product in relation to that with the patient. All right, let's move on some communication tactics, and we'll make this very practical. And we say here, tactic number 1, start logically, but end emotionally. Logic makes people think, right? But emotion makes people act. Both are very, very important. How do I put it? People don't buy for logical reasons. They buy for emotional reasons, right? Example, this is what you should expect to experience once you get the pair of spectacles that we have recommended for you. You see, experience is not a logical thing, it's an emotional thing. But you started with, you're going to get a pair of spectacles, and you're going to have a transitions on it, we're going to have a prevention on it, and this is how much it's going to cost. You might have started the conversation there, but make sure that when you're ending on the emotional side of things. And you can only end on the emotional side of things when you understand the concern that Ntate Mokoni presented with, or the problem that Ntate Mokoni presented with right at the beginning. So don't lose focus or lose sight of why Ntate Mokoni came to your practice. Because if you are clear on this is why Ntate Mokoni came to your practice, or Meneer Breitenbach came to your practice complaining of the following, whatever that you do needs to tie back to, have you solved Ntate Mokoni or Meneer Breitenbach's problem that he complained of, right? So anyone with a different viewpoint on that, in terms of if you're just having logical discussions with your patients, has that yielded any positive results in convincing the patient that this is the management solution that you have? If you can confirm what I'm saying, or you have had a different experience, kindly please do share in the chat box as well, so that we can actually engage this much further. Communication tactic number 2, we write here, sell on the tangible, but close on the intangible. What do I mean by this, you may ask? For example, number 1, be sensitive to the value of the consumer's time, now more than ever. Remember, people now, we are living in times of various restrictions, various types of lockdowns. The movement of people is limited to certain things. So when people go out now, they're not just wandering at the mall. They're not just going to the shopping center for the sake of going to the shopping center. There are specific reasons that they're going to the optometry practice. They know when they get there. Remember now, they're dealing, everywhere they're going now, they're dealing with looking at people with face masks. When they leave your appointment, and the experience that they got there, all of you are having gloves, shields, the environment is very intimidating. When they leave your place, they're going to a different place altogether, right? And going to experience the same stuff. As an optometry practice, be sensitive to the value of the consumer's time. Number 2, be aware of the financial challenges the consumers may have. Number 3, be trustworthy, knowledgeable, and genuine. That's a characteristic, or those are characteristics that are important for you to have when you're communicating. Trust, knowledgeable, and genuineness. People need to see authenticity when they're communicating with you. They can only see authenticity by picking up from your energy that you care, from picking up from your communication that you actually care about the visual problem, as opposed to you being concerned with the pair of spectacles that you want them to buy. There's a difference. Number 4, be able to explain product drawbacks. This is a massive advantage. I'll give you an example. A patient comes into your practice. You guys have never seen them before. Mariki comes to your practice wearing a pair of spectacles. The very first thing that you need to establish while that patient is completing the patient information forms is, Mariki, the pair of spectacles that you're wearing, and this, I will do this even when I'm a staff member. The pair of spectacles that you're wearing, how long have you been wearing them? And I'll make notes, okay? 3 years. Was it your first pair of spectacles? No, I've been wearing glasses for the last 6 years. Any concerns that you had with this particular pair of spectacles that you got? Do you feel that it did that which you wanted it to do when you got them? Mariki is going to say to you, in the beginning, I was happy, but after a few months, I noticed that I still had a problem with light. What does that do? That's a red flag. 6 years, but the current pair of spectacles that Mariki is wearing still gave her a problem. What does that tell you? That most probably, either if you are able to spot it, that wait a minute, she's wearing anti-reflective coating on her spectacles, or perhaps she's not, and you can see that as a staff member. You make note of that. What do you do? Go back to what I mentioned in the beginning when I said introduce the management option that you're going to be talking, that you want the person to leave with. You see how the opportunity presents itself is by you probing the Mariki. It's not Mariki telling you what's wrong. It's by you probing Mariki, and now you discover it. And this person has never seen the optometrist in the practice. You are the first point of contact. So, Mariki, that's actually very concerning to us, because you've been wearing glasses for 6 years, and yet on your 6th pair of glasses, you're still not happy. One of the things that I can immediately think of is that the coating that you're wearing on your glasses is perhaps a basic anti-reflective coating. I'm not sure if you are aware, but there's different types of anti-reflective coatings. There are different types of tints. And so when you go in with the optometrist, one of the things that you should immediately tell them and discuss with them is your experience with this product with this pair of spectacles that you've been wearing, because he or she will tell you or inform you of the advanced coatings and tints that are available, that you will not have to complain of this problem ever again. You see, that's how you introduce products. It's not a difficult thing, guys. You literally make it conversational, and an opportunity, especially with people that you guys have not seen, that are coming to your practice for the first time. You have an amazing opportunity to find out from them what was their experience with the current management, or with the previous management solution, and then it presents an opportunity for you to introduce new ones. You need to be interested in the consumer and their needs. You have to be knowledgeable, or you need to increase your knowledge base pertaining to the products and all things eye care related. And you need to get testimonials and consumer feedbacks. This is something very, very important. If a patient is happy with what they experience in the optometric practice, and you can see that this person is genuinely happy, ask for a testimony, ask for a referral, ask for feedback. Why is it that they're happy? What did we solve that changed their life? Ask for it, and ask, can you share this on social media? Can you share this on your website? Can we share this with other patients that come to the practice presenting with the same problem? Communication tactic number 3, I'll move faster on this. we say here, if anyone has a previous experience on the different tactics that we alluded to on tactic number 2, please do make mention of them in the chat box. We say here, selling isn't telling, it's asking. This is about the connection that you want to build. And so what we mean by this is it's a two-way conversation. Think of it in terms of a relationship that you're trying to establish with the patient. The only difference is that time is of the essence. So it's like you're in an elevator and you're trying to get the buy-in of this person. And so ask as many questions so that you can ensure that you are aware and identifying of the potential concerns and problems that this person feel are important to them. So that when you're discussing the product, when you're communicating the product, you're communicating products in relation to what is important to them, over and above to what the diagnosis is revealing. So always go back to what is important to the patient, because if it's not important to the patient, you're not going to be able to convince them that they must spend their money on it. Communication tactic number 4, we made mention of this earlier on. Talk value, nothing else. Consumers buy you before they buy what you are selling them. And so you need to understand that we as optometric practices, we don't sell spectacles. We sell management solutions, and spectacles are a component of those management solutions. So talk value all the time. I don't know how more I can re-emphasize or emphasize this point. Tactic number 5, the main responsibility in selling is as follows. We inform, we educate, we convince, and we persuade. I encourage those who didn't have an opportunity to go and to listen to the recording on the consumer analytics webinar to go and do so, because we actually break it down very nicely in terms of the main responsibility of selling there. I see we've got a comment here quickly. Rihanna again says that actually happened to us last week. The patient was happy for a week with her old pair of glasses, another Optom, just a week. 2 years later, she gets the chance to get a new pair and tells us her concerns. So we make sure to give her what she needs for the new pair. That's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it works. That's exactly how it works, Rihanna. You need to put yourself in that situation where you identify what is a concern to the patient, not what the practice wants to sell. What is a concern to our patient? Because if you can scratch where it itches the most, that patient will spend whatever amount of money they need to get the solution that solves the problem that they have. Simple as that. And last tactic number 6, we wrote here, be people and service orientated. What we mean by that, you sell, and I'll say it again, you sell solutions, not spectacles. And you need to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. What do you need to know about the two? Sympathy, it means you feel the way the other person feels, right? However, empathy, you understand how the person feels, though you don't feel the same way. You know the problem that they are going through, you understand it, but you also have the solution for that problem. That's the difference between sympathy and empathy. Because if you're just sympathetic, you're not going to sell anything. You need to be empathetic. Remember, consumers buy you before they buy what you share with them. And if I make what is a concern or what is a problem to the patient a concern to me, we connect with the patient. And so when I say, look, I know that in your working environment, this is your current visual environment. This is what you are expecting from it. This is what you're currently getting from it. But this is what we can do for you in relation to that. I've won the conversation. I've assured the patient that which I have done, that which I have communicated them to, and that which I have recommended as a product or as a management solution is exactly what they are convinced about that they need. That's what you do. And so let's look at the difference between the clinical versus financial management. I would like quickly go through this. One, consumers want you to consult them, not sell to them. Your responsibility is to provide advice, show support, and give honest analysis to them to be able to make an informed decision about what they're buying from you. Consumers want you to listen to them and be able to adapt to their needs. Consumers want you to understand their precise needs and manage that. Consumers want you to be real with them. And lastly, they cannot assess cost effectively, but they can determine the value of what they are purchasing. So like I said earlier on, they look at what will I be gaining if I go with what you're recommending versus what will I be losing if I don't. So our job is to make sure that we can convince them. Let's make it practical. A consumer says they need time to think about the management option you're proposing. Your responsibility, for example, at that stage should then do the following. Number one, probe them in a friendly and kind manner to discover what the challenges are, right? If the challenge is a financial one, don't be too focused on downgrading the management option. Yes, Annette? Oh. Let's say the problem is a financial one, right? Don't be too focused on downgrading the management solution that you initially suggested for a cheaper one so that you can just get the sale. Don't do that. That's the worst thing that you can do. Be confident in the service, product, and your pricing. Why? You have to demonstrate the importance of your management plan to the problems that the patient has alluded to, and show them that this is what they're going to experience when they get the management that you are recommending. And if they don't go for it, this is what they're going to actually experience in their visual environment. You need to look at if you can still see that there's a problem, you then need to look at aspects of the pricing that you are able to adjust for them. They need to see that you care and have their best interest at heart, not you just trying to sell them anything, right? So just when someone raises a concern, you need to just probe them. It sounds like it's a challenge, especially when it comes to pricing. It's really just a question about how flexible you are as a practice and are you willing to adjust the price. That's simply what happens when it comes to that, nothing more. Never be overbearing though to the consumer. It pushes them away. And so be courteous, be respectful, but don't be so quick to jump to downgrading from the anti-reflective coating that you have recommended to a cheaper one immediately after you have just spent the last 10-15 minutes showing them the importance of what you are recommending. So make sure that you first address the concern adequately enough before just downgrading the management solution that you have recommended. All right, so let's look at some things that you need to know that are very, very important regarding lenses. For me, one thing that is very shocking, and we're coming to a close here, one thing that is very shocking in most practices is that employees have not been continuously and effectively trained on the products they sell to consumers. And you cannot effectively or adequately provide excellent service delivery and increase sales when your product knowledge is insufficient. So think about it this way. What you need to know, this is something that the whole practice needs to know adequately, by the way. What material goes with what prescription? Very important. You need to be able to explain and demonstrate the benefits the different materials will have to the consumer regarding the eyewear. You never compromise on the quality of the lens material when discussing pricing with the patient. Very, very important. Always look for the upgrade opportunity in the lens material as well. Don't be comfortable with a person who has been in your practice wearing a Neva Max, for example, for the last 6 years, and you're just comfortable in prescribing the same thing all the time. You need to always look for the upgrade potential. Perhaps that person that has always been wearing the Neva Max on the pair of glasses for the last 6 years, the second pair of glasses that they had gotten was or had no ARC on it, why are you not sitting down with the patient and saying, sir, you always get 2 pairs of glasses, yet you only put the Niva Max on the one pair and not on both pairs. Have you noticed the difference in your visual experience between the two? Guess what Tab was going to say? Tab was going to say, actually, you're right. I've noticed that I don't wear this pair often as I would love to because I don't see as clearly and comfortably as I do on this one. Well, it's very simple. Look, you know what you have experienced with this product that you've been wearing, right? Which you thoroughly enjoy. Why don't you put it on both pairs? Because why are there certain times when you are having great vision and certain times when you are having poor vision? Why are you compromising the quality of your vision, Tab? It's very simple. Let's put it on both, especially now that you've experienced the difference. Let's put it on both so that there's never a point in time when the quality of your vision is compromised based on the eyewear that you have. But I don't usually use this pair all the time. Tabo, do you wear the same pair of shoes every single day? Do you wear the same pair of jeans every single day? No, I don't. I cannot understand that you right now are saying that your feet are more important than how you see. I would rather compromise my feet because I'm at the office the whole day sitting. I would actually even have slippers at work. I'll walk and just, if I'm sitting behind a computer the whole day, I'll be as comfortable as I possibly can. I'll take off my shoes and wear slippers. When I leave my desk, I'll put on my shoes again. You see, Tabo? I would do that for my feet, how much more than for my eyes? Something that I require, because if I had to lose my sight, it's going to impact me more than if I had a torn pair of jeans or an old pair of shoes, right? So, sir, unfortunately, I don't want you leaving here compromising the quality of your vision. So let's upgrade you on both pairs having the necessary coating on it, and this is how much it's going to cost you. It's very simple, guys. Don't complicate your conversation or how you communicate with the patient. Last part here. There's no excuse whatsoever for any individual who's working in an optometric practice for more than 6 months to not be adequate when it comes to commonly used products in the practice. That there's no excuse whatsoever. If you get into a new working environment, you better make sure you learn as much as you possibly can about that which the business does every single day. Because once you understand the products that you are dealing with, it makes it easy for you to communicate them. You become more competent, more excellent, more efficient at the work. It's actually to your benefit that you know the different products that you guys are selling in the practice. So if you're dealing with a night drive boost every day, make sure that you know everything that there is about it. If you have to get a pair made for you, or ask someone in the practice who's got a pair and ask them how they experience it, go out of your way to do so. Continuing on lenses, benefits and clinical features of individual products. You need to be able to distinguish the difference between the different lenses and products that are in the practice. The difference between entry-level and premium products. Be comfortable at both. Be in a position to discuss value on both. Be able to talk product drawbacks on both. Don't just know, entry-level product does this, premium product does this. Know what do patients expect from this? How are patients going to experience this product as compared to the other one? It's your responsibility to know that. Like I made mention to the quotations earlier on, if you're working with the same top 10 products on a day-to-day basis, if someone asks you something, you need to know the different combinations. If you have a pair of single vision spectacles with a Niva Plus, it will cost this much. With a Niva Max, it will cost this much. With a Prevention, it will cost this much. With a night drive boost, it will cost this much. If I included transitions on that, it will cost this much. Or if I just have acclimates on it, it will cost. You need to know that because you're dealing with them every single day. There's no excuse whatsoever that you don't know how to immediately give a quotation in a conversation if you're working with those prices and products on a day-to-day basis. And by the way, very important, you need to know also what your medical aid covers in relation to that. Your top 5 medical aids that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, you need to know the pricing structures, the different combinations of products in relation to what the medical aid pays for. How does it relate? And be able to do it on your own when it's quiet in the practice. Do those combinations. Ask the optometrist, okay, if I combine this and that, it's this. If I combine this and this, so that when you have objections in pricing, you know that, wait a minute, if I change the pricing from a single vision with a night drive boost to a prevention, it's going to cost this much. You should be confident and comfortable in doing that when it comes to quotations. Know the different lens enhancements that are available. And lastly, like I said, the medical aid challenges that may come across. You have a responsibility to ensure that you are comfortable and competent in detailing medical aid challenges and overcoming those obstacles that patients may bring up. In frames, you have to know the current trends and styles. When we do the webinar on product knowledge, we will focus more on these different products, these different components of the products, both to the lenses and to the frames. And then we'll also include on the communication components associated with this. And we'll be specific then on the actual pricing related to these when we're dealing with that particular webinar. And so here's something that you can focus on. This is in our book, so I won't, based on time, I just put this up here for something that you guys can go and do as a practice. Why is this important? I wrote here, especially now more than ever, you need to know as a practice. I wrote here for the patient, you need to know for that person that walks into the practice for the very first time, complaining over something, when do you follow up with them for the very first time? Remember, you want to convert a patient into a customer, right? You want that patient that you've assisted to become a regular customer, and you want your regular customer to become, or you want your customer to become your client, someone who keeps coming back to the practice year after year. So we have put here, for example, I'll just give you random examples. Symptom relief, if eye drops were given to a patient, for example, 72 hours, 10 to 14 days if it was an eyewear experience for the very first time. So Lerato came to the practice for the very first time. She has been spending 8-10 hours in front of a computer during the lockdown. Post the lockdown, her eyes are frustrated and irritated. She comes to the practice to get glasses. Why are you waiting for her to come back after 2 years to follow up on her? 10 to 14 days after her spectacles, pick up the phone and call Lerato and say, Lerato, you have not been wearing glasses all your life, and this was the first time wearing glasses. How was your experience with them? That's how you go about doing your follow-up with the first-time patient. With their customer, you do the same thing at 3 months. So in our books, both books, we detail this particular chart. So I encourage everyone to get a copy of our book, because we actually go into specific details in our book pertaining to how you can exceed expectations regarding following up. Remember, the post-service or aftercare service that you give is just as important as the initial service that you give. And so we highly recommend that you go in to get a copy of our book so that you can see this. And last time we had a request on social media. So when we do deal with the social media webinar, some of the things that we're going to be detailing is how do you communicate on social media platforms, that which you do on a day-to-day basis in the practice. How do you target a specific audience? How do you create thoughtful content? How are you going to be authentic and transparent throughout your communication? In which way should you be creating lots of links whereby people can download relevant free content? How do you encourage people to contact you by using surveys, for example? So we will deal with that during that particular webinar that we're going to be doing. And a lot of the things that we have spoken about today in terms of communication, we will include that in that particular webinar. And yeah, as a conclusion, I encourage and highly recommend that as practices, you go back and sit together as having the ideal business approach. What is your approach to the millennials in the practice that come in? Your approach to the baby boomers, your approach to the high incoming or high earning individuals, to the Xhosa speaking people, to the Afrikaans speaking people, to the English speaking. How do you approach, and what is the business strategy for all those different types of individuals in the practice? Because you need to customize what the practice does to the individual. It's no longer a one-size-fits-all approach to everyone. Identify new capabilities. I hope that some of the things that I've shared with you today have enabled you to identify new capabilities in terms of communication that you can employ in your business. Identify new growth areas, and going back to profiling and its importance. It's very, very important that you profile individuals that come to your practice. Very, very important, because when you can identify who's who, you are then able to customize the management solution to that particular individual and make that particular individual feel like the most important person to walk into the practice. So you're not just looking at, we saw 8 patients today, but did you connect with 8 patients? Will those 8 patients be in a position to go and refer 8 other people back into your practice? So that's the importance of profiling. You want to ensure that this individual that we have assisted during this new normal that we are all finding ourselves in, have I done everything that I can as an individual working in an optometry practice to ensure that this person is satisfied, we have exceeded the expectations, is happy, will come back and will recommend other people. And always put yourself in a situation whereby that which we have done now with this particular individual or with this particular sale, how does it give us an advantage in terms of how we communicate with the consumer? And you need to separate what gives you a consumer advantage versus what gives you a competitive advantage. That's something that you as a practice need to sit down together as an entire team in terms of how are we communicating with the consumer versus how are we communicating in a manner that distinguishes us from our competitors. So that's basically it for today, everyone. We hope we covered a lot of tactics that you guys can employ in your practices in order to communicate better with your patients. And those of you who want to connect with us even more, you can find us online at Visionstryt on all social media platforms, and also on my personal page at Malope.